Picture yourself driving down a road in a wooded area during the day. Pleasant and peaceful, isn't it? But now imagine doing it in the middle of the night. All of a sudden, the same event becomes frightening and even hostile. The darkness around you becomes claustrophobic, and you begin to imagine that something might be in the woods and is about to jump onto the street. You begin to fear at the idea of your car breaking down and you having to pull over in this hostile environment that you've imagined in your mind. A hostile environment that isn't entirely fictional. For in the darkness and isolated spaces, dangerous animals and humans can lurk. I mean, people disappear in the woods all the time after all. This exact fear has been utilized in media for decades to capture the attention of the audience, and, specifically, is perfectly captured in the game Fears to Fathom Norwood Hitchhike. Fears to Fathom is an episodic series that covers frightening and disturbing experiences sent in by members of the audience. In the chapter Norwood Hitchhike, we see the story of Holly, a 19-year-old girl returning from a gaming convention and making a long drive home. While her journey to the convention was normal, her journey back home is anything but, because during her trek home, she would become involved in events that you wouldn't believe. In this video, we'll be discussing and analyzing both the story and gameplay of Norwood Hitchhike, so sit back and enjoy. Chapter 1, Out of Gas. On June 16th, Holly Gardner, 19 years old, was traveling home from a gaming convention. She loved attending conventions near her home, but had recently decided to travel quite a way across the country to attend one in particular. Despite objections from her parents, she decided to drive instead of taking a flight due to financial constraints. The convention itself had gone well, and Holly had even met an online friend named Aiden Williams, who actually ended up not being a complete weirdo. On her way home, Holly would run into some pretty bad traffic and instead decide to take some back roads. Though the route was longer, it would take less time due to the less traffic. The entire journey was expected to take 12 hours. However, it would end up taking much longer. What this route lacked in traffic, it made up in horror. The game opens with us driving down a dark road with nothing but the music on the stereo to accompany us. Anyways, without it, the silence would be almost deafening. We're immediately thrown into gameplay, but it isn't really anything too difficult. Controls for this game are quite simple. We use the WASD keys to control our character and the car, and use the left mouse button to interact with our environment, and the G key to throw objects. The gameplay isn't all that advanced or involved, and these games are usually meant as atmospheric walking simulators. Don't expect to be fighting enemies or having really any major action. This is a different kind of experience. While driving, we receive a text from Holly's good friend Aiden. Pressing the escape button, we can see that Holly is having two conversations, one with her father and the other with Aiden. In the text with her father, we can see that he was quite hesitant about her going across the country on her own, but Holly eventually managed to convince him otherwise. The text with Aiden are them discussing their plans for the convention, and Holly talking about her attempts to convince her father on letting her go. Getting back on the road, all we need to do is press W to go forward and control our direction with the A and D keys. Nothing too complex at this point, but I will say this car is a little bit janky when it comes to these controls. Graphically, the game does have a VHS type filter that gives off a vibe that you might see in a found footage movie. Though the graphics themselves don't really seem like anything special, the VHS filter itself does certainly add a sense of realism, as if we were watching an actual amateur video from the 80s or 90s. Eventually further down the road, we pass a white van traveling in the opposite direction, but notice no other cars during our drive. Eventually the fuel light comes on, and I sure hope we can find a gas station out here in the middle of nowhere. Remember that fear that I told you about? The one about you breaking down in the middle of a forested area at night? Well, I certainly hope that doesn't happen here. Luckily, we eventually come upon a gas station just down the road. As we turn into the gas station, we come upon the first problem in this game, and that is that the car turns like a semi-truck. It's very hard to make turns, and honestly it requires a lot of back and forth to get into the stall. Hopefully, the gas station clerk inside the store isn't looking at me trying to park my car like an idiot.
Captain, we'll buff out those scratches.
Getting out, we see that the gas station is mostly deserted, with only one other customer there, a strange man with a blue sweater and a pickup truck parked in front. I don't suppose they receive much business out here. It's dark and quiet, and a sense of unease fills you. You know, I've always been afraid to go to gas stations at night. I always feel like it's a hotspot for robberies and other shenanigans. And whatever. Let's just get the gas and get out of here. Getting inside, we see that the store is, well, a regular gas station store. Nothing in particular of concern here. We also see that there is one employee and the blue sweater customer that I spoke of earlier. We go over to the left and notice a vending machine that allows you to purchase a variety of products that increases your sprint speed. From my knowledge, sprinting isn't really a thing in this game, and at no point are you required to run from anything. Not sure what the point of this is, and I assume that it may have been part of a gameplay section that was later on removed from the final product. Also, it doesn't really matter how much money you spend, as Holly doesn't really have a set amount of cash on her, so don't worry about splurging. I guess that Holly has a Federal Reserve in her pocket and can let those sprinters run. Going through the aisles, we see a selection of drinks, foods, and the usual that you expect. Eventually, we receive a text from Holly's mom. We're not exactly sure what she wants, and she puts a question mark after our name, as if she's unsure if we are Holly. A little strange, but maybe Holly got a new phone. We attempt to speak with the customer with the blue sweater, asking where they're going or how their night has been, but receive nothing but silence. Well, that is quite strange, but I suppose he might not be the most social person out there. I guess I wouldn't want to speak to a stranger in a gas station in the middle of nowhere either. Going up to the gas station clerk, we ask for $10 of gas on pump 2. Before we can leave, he asks us if we're heading to the bridge. We ask him why he would be asking us this question. He tells us that not many people head to the Norwood Valley Bridge at this time of the year, and tells us to be careful. What could the danger possibly be, we ask him. Apparently for about a century, many people have been going missing down there at night. The same fate waited for many of those who went looking for them. The clerk tells us that these people were killed by the Norwood Valley monster, who had torn them up and hung them upside down on trees. Okay, that was a little strange. But I suppose most places have their folklore that is passed down and usually isn't really true. Maybe these disappearances are just due to people getting lost in the woods. I'm sure if I stick to the road, we'll be fine. Walking towards a window, we notice a van parked near the road that wasn't there before. They don't seem like they're getting gas. But as we're about to leave the store, we notice a man pop up from behind our car, and then are interrupted by the clerk. He tells us that if we see a woman in a white or blue gown trying to get a ride, that we shouldn't stop and should instead step on the gas and get out of there. It seems like this woman is another local folklore, a spirit of someone who, according to some, died in a car accident on her prom night, or was murdered. Regardless of the cause, it seems like she is seeking vengeance and might be posing as a hitchhiker. The clerk warns us to never pick up a hitchhiker on the road. They aren't what they seem and are extremely dangerous. And oh my goodness, man, shut up. Man, this guy talks a lot. Anyways, okay, that second talk with the clerk was more disturbing than the first. I mean, most of the time I go to a gas station, the clerk usually says nothing. It seems like they just want me to go away. But I guess I have that reaction from most people. Anyways, I understand that hitchhikers can be dangerous, but he is making them seem like they might be, not actual people. This is starting to sound even creepier, but I wasn't going to pick up any hitchhikers anyhow. Honestly, at this point, I just want to get out of here and hit the road again. Once the conversation ends, we look out the door and see a strange man next to our car doing something. Not sure what though. As we approach, he rushes off and gets into his van before speeding off. Who the hell was that, and what was he doing? The van that he's driving looks familiar to the one we passed earlier on the road, but they were going in the opposite direction. That was creepy, but I guess we don't really have anything else to go off for now, so whatever. Regardless, we fill up the tank and hit the road again. Hopefully we won't be making any more stops. Oh, one more thing. Holly's mom actually texted us to ask us to buy some dog food, so let's actually do that quickly. Man, I really hope this isn't expired. Chapter 2, Broken Down. Going down on the road, we're once again alone with our music. Not much to see besides the road, trees, and endless darkness. Eventually our headlights turn off for a few seconds before turning back on. Not exactly sure what that is, but hopefully the battery is okay. Holly didn't really experience any of these issues on our ride to the convention. The lights then begin flickering, but eventually go back to normal. The last thing we want is to be left in complete darkness out here. I don't think Holly has any of that AAA service available. As we drive forward, we notice a red car before us. I guess we aren't completely alone out here. He's driving a little bit slow, so let's try to pass him. But before we can do that, he speeds off and disappears. Not exactly sure what that was all about. Did we spook him? Maybe he thought I was challenging him to a street race. Son, this ain't no Tokyo Drift. Whatever, let's just keep going. Eventually our lights come back on and the radio plays again. Hopefully the battery holds out long enough for us to make it to our destination. Eventually the road turns to dirt. We end up crossing the Norwood Valley Bridge. Luckily we don't really see any monsters or hitchhikers here. Once we cross the bridge, the radio begins to static and cut out. And even our phone loses connection. Damn it, not my Spice Girl tracks. Okay, now we're definitely in the middle of nowhere. Driving up ahead, we see that the road is blocked by some logs. Not sure how this could even be possible. It seems as if someone placed them here on purpose and doesn't look like a tree could have fallen on its own. Also, there was a car in front of us. How did they make it past these logs? Could the other driver have placed them there? Perhaps that's why they sped off in front of us. Gosh, I really hope this isn't one of those social experiments where someone's gonna jump out on us. Well, not sure, but Holly eventually gets out and moves him out of the way. Looking around, we once again are confronted by the darkness and the silence around us. But here, we are truly alone. No lights, music, or any people to be seen. No signal for our phone or radio. Complete isolation. A type of isolation that could lead you to see things in the corner of your eyes, or hear whispers echoing from the darkness. We don't even have the hull of the car protecting us out here. Hopefully that monster or woman with a blue or white gown doesn't appear. Once we're done with the logs, we get back into the car. But it doesn't turn back on. Well, looks like what we feared the most has occurred. She's stuck in the middle of nowhere. No phone signal or anything. Our greatest fear has now been realized. Holly at this point realizes that she will have to wait for someone to pass and help her. Hopefully, whoever arrives is a friend. At 10:23 p.m., a car finally appears but quickly passes by and doesn't offer any help. What a douche. But I suppose perhaps they heard the story from the gas station clerk about not picking up any strangers. Holly calls them pure evil, but I think it might be a little bit understandable that someone doesn't want to pick up a stranger on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. Eventually at 10:43 p.m., we see a familiar pickup passing by. It looks quite familiar to the one that we saw back at the gas station. To Holly's surprise, he stops slightly down the road. Should we go up to this guy? I don't know. Guys with pickups are usually dangerous in horror stories, but I guess we don't really have a choice. Holly rushes up to the pickup to speak to the stranger, and to our surprise, it's the one silent blue sweater man from the gas station. He asks if we are the one from the gas station, and we tell him yes. He asks what we're doing out here, and we mention that our car broke down. We ask for a ride and he agrees to take us to the nearest stop where we can get some help. He tells us to quickly get our stuff, as he can't stay here for long. He also refuses to get out to help us move our stuff, as it's far too dangerous. I suppose maybe there is something out here. Maybe that gas station clerk may have been onto something. Not wanting him to leave, Holly rushes to her car and packs everything into the pickup. Need to make sure we get that dog food in there. Don't want our mother to get mad. Once done, we quickly get into the truck and drive off. Man, I really do hope this is the right choice. We don't really know this man and can't really trust him, but Holly doesn't exactly have a choice right now. I suppose Holly would just have to be really careful around him. He asks us where we're going, and Holly mentions that she was going home after attending a convention. He reveals that his name is Jason, and we reply with Holly. Jason mentions that Holly should consider herself quite lucky that he happened past this area, and that we are quite brave to be out here alone. He asks if we know what happened to our car. Holly mentions that the car was old and just broke down due to wear and tear, but Jason goes silent. A few moments later, he asks Holly whether she believes a story that she heard from the gas station attendant. Holly mentions that it creeped her out, and Jason mentions that everyone who travels this way hears that story from him. Holly asks whether that story is true. Jason replies that he's never seen a monster around here, but he has seen some things. He mentions that our car breaking down may have been connected to these things. Jason tells Holly that if she doesn't bother them, they won't bother her. But who is them? We can't say for sure at this point. Could it be some kind of animal, group of people, or something else? Could it be connected to that strange man in the van that we saw earlier at the gas station, who was crouched over near a car and passed us earlier on the road? Or maybe the person in the red car that was driving slowly and then sped out once we approached them. I mean, after all, that strange man was doing something by our car. I suppose having a strange cult-like group out here would be in season, but I certainly hope that it isn't after Holly. We don't really learn much more about who these people are. It seems that Jason is hesitant to talk about them any further. Man, Holly really should have just stayed on that main highway. Chapter 3, The Stranger at the Motel. Eventually, Jason drops us off at the motel where we can get some help. But before he leaves, he tells Holly to be careful and that there are all kinds of people out there. Alright, I think whoever was in that white van or that red car is up to something. Not sure what. Could they be linked to Holly? I guess we'll just have to see. We walk into the motel office and meet Joe, the manager. We pay for a room and for our car to be picked up and fixed. Room 9 is for us, so let's make our way over there. And before we leave, Joe warns us that we should be quiet and shouldn't wake up the other guests because they might not take very nicely to it. Guess we won't be listening to the Spice Girls anymore, but I suppose that's understandable. But before we go to our room, let's explore the motel. Looking at the parking lot, it doesn't appear that there's many guests here. I suppose that makes sense since we're in the middle of nowhere. Heading further, we come upon room 4 near the corner of the motel, and notice that the door to the room is open. As we approach, it suddenly closes. I suppose they just forgot to close it. In front we see a red car, one that looks quite familiar with the... Wait a second. That bumper sticker looks similar to the one that we saw before. It might be the same driver. Could the door have been open because they were peeping on us? We can't say for sure, but I suppose we'll keep our eyes open. Let's just get to our room and try to pass the night. Hopefully things will be easier in the day. Well, here it is. Room number 9. Before we go in, we receive some more texts. It seems that our family is worried about our whereabouts, but we can't really respond due to Holly having no signal. Turning on the television, we notice that Superman is on, and not much else. I suppose this must be public domain now or something. Not exactly sure how the developer got this into the game otherwise. Overall, the room looks pretty nice, and we don't have a mattress. Man, this room was like $40. Do we have to pay extra for the mattress? I guess we'll just have to speak to the manager. Well, maybe first let's go into the bathroom and... What the hell? There is someone in the damn bathroom. We ask who he is and he tells us that he's Tommy and does room service. He tells us he's been cleaning stuff in the bathroom and making content for his OnlyFans. He tells us that he needs us to step outside while he prepares the room. Man, this is weird. Whatever. I guess we'll just go get our stuff while he prepares everything. This night is getting stranger by the minute. Once we return, we see that the bed finally has a mattress and everything is in order. We speak with Tommy and he tells us that Joe informed him of Holly's situation and that he will get our car. He also asks what is wrong with these people. He mentions that it is safe here. What exactly could he mean by that? Does this confirm that someone is out to get Holly, the strange man at the gas station in the white van, and perhaps the person in the red car? And if these people are after us, then I think we're going to have to watch our backs. Looks like we'll be keeping that door well locked tonight. Unfortunately, we can't really ask Tommy anything else or ask Joe about who these people could possibly be, but they seem to know who it is. I suppose it's best at this point to just go to bed and wait for the morning. While we lay in bed, we hear footsteps outside. When we turn, we see that someone is looking through the window. Peeking outside through the blinds, we see that whoever it was is gone. Holly goes outside and notices a man making a beeline for room 4. Damn it, I knew it. Whoever's after us is staying in room number 4. I suppose we really can't make a run for it as our car is still out of service. If we run, they could easily catch us. At this point, Holly starts to feel worried and overwhelmed with anxiety and decides that coffee might ease her nerves. I suppose we can forget about sleeping tonight. However, with those strange men out there, sleeping might not be our best choice. We search for the machine and notice that it's right by room number 4 at the corner of the motel. Not sure why it's here, but let's just get in and get out of here. Though if I was Holly, I wouldn't go anywhere near this room. What to get? Let's go with an espresso, shall we? Well, let's rush back to our room and what the hell is happening? All of a sudden everything goes dark and we start to hear strange sounds. Once our vision returns, everything is blurry and the movement becomes difficult. Even the controls have become inverted. Damn it, has Holly been drugged? Shouldn't have gotten that coffee. Maybe those freaks in room 4 did something to the machine. Holly rushes back into her room in hopes of not being caught by those two. We get another text from Holly's dad, but we can't really read it due to her blurry vision. We close the door and head for bed. Hopefully whatever this is, we can sleep it off. At 3:18 a.m., Holly awakens to the sound of the phone. I thought that thing didn't work. Holly realizes that she'd been sedated, but I think we also hear something else. The sound of footsteps and something closing, like the closet. We get up and notice that our luggage has been organized together. I don't exactly remember us doing this. Wait, did someone come into our room? Could it have been... Holly walks towards the closet, but before she can open it, someone knocks on the door. Holly asks who it is, and it turns out that Joe has come to confront us. Apparently, some people have been complaining about noise from our room. I mean, it couldn't have been Holly as she's been asleep for the last few hours. Joe notices that our eyes are red, and we mention that it's because of that coffee machine. But Joe mentions that they don't have a coffee machine. Well, that can't be possible. It's right across from us. We lead Joe to the location of the machine and notice that it's not there anymore. We also notice that the trunk of the red car is open. Could they have moved it? Joe abruptly tells us to go back to our room. His demeanor has completely changed, and he seems more concerned now. But before we leave, he tells us that there's some medicine in the room that we can take to help us. Once inside, we notice that the closet door is open. There was someone inside, perhaps planning to do something while we were unconscious. It seems that Joe may have saved us with that phone call and the knock on the door. Alright, we're definitely staying awake and keeping an eye on that door. We take the medication and some of the effects of whatever we got go away. Heading to bed, we notice a picture flash and whispering outside. It seems like they're back. Are they running an OnlyFans as well and taking pictures of us without our permission? Hey, I want to get some compensation for those pics. We peek through the blinds and notice a man walk up to the door. It's the same man that we saw at the gas station. He knocks and asks to be let in, but Holly refuses to open the door. He says that he needs our help, but we still refuse to open the door. He starts to bang on it, and Holly quickly rushes into the closet and hides. The man searches around the room, and we pray that he doesn't open the closet. Eventually, Joe comes into the room and hides by the bathroom door and knocks out the strange man. I guess Joe had a particular set of skills. Joe tells Holly not to call the police as it might damage the reputation of the hotel. Holly eventually gets her car and leaves, and swears to never take another road trip like this again. Holly never really discovers who was truly after her, but suspects that it might have been a cult, or a drug ring, or maybe something worse. And that is the end of Fears to Fathom, Norwood Hitchhike. So what happened exactly? Well, the creator of the series, Rael, during a Q&A session, had actually revealed that the strange man that was following us had originally spotted Holly at the gaming convention that she attended. The man thought that she was pretty and decided to follow her in order to assault her. We don't really discover this information in the game, as the creator actually forgot to add this in. The man eventually caught up with her at the gas station and messed with her engine to make her break down. It is quite interesting that when we tried to go outside, the gas station clerk quickly got our attention and got into another conversation with us. I do wonder if he was trying to distract us. I do wonder if he was in on it and was trying to buy the stranger some time. The second man in the red car raced ahead of Holly and put the logs on the road to block her in. It seems that they planned to strand her in the middle of nowhere and abduct her, but for some reason this failed, perhaps because other cars were using that road on that day. Eventually, it seems like the two stalkers decided to use a different plan and instead abduct her at the motel. They drug Holly with the coffee machine and one of them sneaks into her room. But before he can do anything, Joe the motel manager arrives and the man flees when we leave the room to show Joe where the coffee machine is. Eventually, Joe knocks out the man and we escape. It is alluded that these two men were part of a cult or a human trafficking ring. We don't exactly know for sure if that is true. We also know that both Jason and Joe are actually aware of these individuals, as Jason warns about the strange things out there and how we shouldn't bother them. Joe also knew something was off when we told him about the coffee machine. When he noticed that our eyes were red, we saw how his demeanor had changed, and also how he just happened to have a medicine in the room that could help us fight off the sedative. It seems like he has dealt with this situation before. Also, when we spoke with Tommy, he told us that he spoke with Joe about our situation, and he assured us that it is safe here, and asked what is wrong with these people. Apparently, they knew that what was happening to us wasn't normal. Also, the story that the gas station clerk told us about people disappearing in Norwood could have been caused by the cult as well. It seems like these people are aware of them, but don't really do anything about it. Joe even asked Holly not to get the police involved. Perhaps this is due to him being afraid of the cult acting out against him. But overall, it seems like this town is infested with a strange group that the residents are afraid of and try to warn Holly about. Joe even went far enough to watch over her and save her when she needed it. Earlier in the month, I actually reviewed the 4th episode, Unbark Lookout, and in my opinion, I did enjoy that episode much more. Now this is an earlier episode, as is a second overall, and we can see what improvements were made later on. Unlike Unbark Lookout, this episode was much shorter and had no voice acting. The gameplay was much more limited and graphically wasn't as nice. Also, the driving in Unbark Lookout was far more improved, even though that has its own problems, like still needing the clearance of a cargo plane to make a turn. Hopefully in the 5th episode we see a serious improvement in this area. I did enjoy this game overall and would recommend a purchase. While the gameplay is incredibly simple, the atmosphere and the storytelling were excellent. Overall, this is a great experience if you're into horror or suspenseful thriller games. Expect the entire experience to only last you 40 minutes. I don't expect any replay value, as the game is quite linear with limited gameplay options. I really can't wait for the 5th episode, and I hope that we see new improvements and gameplay innovations.